Reit, noswaith dda, mae'n 9 o gloch, mae'n newydd basio 9 o gloch, just turned 9 o'clock, so we'll make a start with this live stream session as part of Tech Tyfu, which is a project that was created and it's now delivered by Menter Môn. So my name's Geraint and I work as a freelance with an agri-food background. I'm very lucky to be able to work as and when required for Tech Tyfu. I'm working very closely with Luke Tyler, who manages the Tech Tyfu project. And I think Luke is in the group tonight listening. And so maybe do engage, do share, do network. Felly'r syniad hyn yma ydy rhoi bach o racflas i chi o'r uned tyfu sgynna ni fa hyn, uned tyfu Tech Tyfu, na 5 haen. Mi fyddai'n mynd trwy'r beth sy'n tyfu'n bob haen, rhoi bach o wybodaeth am y prosiect, a hefyd newyddion am blwyddyn nesaf, fyddwn ni'n recrwtio tyfwyr newydd. Felly croeso chi i'r sesiwn byw yma ar Facebook. Does gynna ni ddim tîm cynhyrchu, felly mae o'n wirioneddol jes y fi ar iPad efo hyn heno. Felly mi yna i drio cadw golwg ar y cwestiynau sylwadau, a gobeithio fydd o'n sesiwn rhyngweithiol, a dwi'n gweld yna ddipyn di ymuno'n barod sydd yn gret i weld. Felly warm welcome to everybody who's joined. It's very much one man and his iPad. There's no big production team behind the scenes, it's just me and talking with you live. And it's something we're trying to experiment because we think the live stream will be on the feed for this Facebook page so people can dip in afterwards. We've tried quite late in the night, 9 o'clock, to see if that's a bit more convenient. Mae wedi twyllu bellach, it's gone dark, it's that time of the year, so maybe some of you might be interested in vertical farming and just want to learn a bit more about what's going on. So noswaith dda Matthew Jones ac Leia o'n gwylio hefyd, so there's already picking up some names. Diolch yn fawr i chi am ymuno efo ni. Reit ta, mae'r gola bach yn anodd, felly dwi'n yn siŵr os eisiau gweld y wyneb i ni ddim, ond mae'r gola yn weithiau tôl fi yno ymlaen ni, yma reit gry. Felly Tech Tyfu, prosiect gan Menter Môn ac noswaith dda Dafydd, ac nod Tech Tyfu ydy annog y tyfu a cynhyrchu cynnyrch lleol. A Dafydd sydd yn mynd o fyny ydy prif weithredwr Menter Môn. So Dafydd, the chief exec of Menter Môn, has just joined us now as well. And it's very much an area there's been a lot of talk about and very timely because I think there's more and more people talking about having local food and local fresh produce. There is a distinct lack of local produce in Wales, and with all the emphasis on the circular economy, keeping money within the local area, it's a no-brainer. However, we think the challenge is not necessarily the growing, but building the whole supply chain. It's a food policy, it's a food systems challenge as well as growing. So to bring you up to date, we've bought 5 of these units, and this unit here is a flood and drain unit where we flood these different layers with water, and later on in a few minutes I will take the iPad around so you can have a closer look. And there are 3 growers around Anglesey and Gwynedd who have been given these units as well as Glynllifon College to get some experience of vertical farming. And then myself and Luke are trying to build bridges with local distributors and companies and restaurants to try and build that supply chain. Felly rowch eich cwestiynau, sylwadau yn y chat a na i drio ymatab iddyn nhw. Rwan ta, dwi'n mynd i symud yr iPad mewn gwmpas a na i roi rhyw fath o sylwebaeth. So what I'll do, I'll move the iPad around these different layers and I'll just try and give a bit of a commentary about them. Okay, rwan ta. Dyna ni. Rwan yn y gychwyn yn y gwylod, we'll start at the bottom. So these units have been bought for the project, and the idea is that these units will be used by people in Gwynedd and Anglesey to get some experience of growing using these hydroponic systems. So on the floor, there's the water tank, the reservoir, a mae hwn yn dal dŵr ac mae eisiau llenwi'r y dŵr yma bob hyn a hyn, a bob tro rhwng newid cropia mae eisiau dŵr glân. Rwan yn y pen draw, mi wylwch chi pibell yn dod allan o'r dŵr a fanna mae'r pump. So there's the pump there in the water reservoir. Actually, I'm just looking at this now on the screen, and it probably needs a bit of topping up already, just in case the pump works harder than it has to. Then in the corner there, in the far corner, you can see the pipe coming from the pump, and then it's then pumped to each of these layers. And there's 5 layers altogether, and in each corner there's an outlet where the water comes out. So what I'll do now is switch the pump on. Fydd na chydig bach o sŵn wrth i fi rhoi'r pump ymlaen, a dyma ni'r switch efo hyn. A bosib rhoid y pump ar timer, fel fod modd i'r system redeg yn automatic. You can set this on the timer, so you can, it's a fairly automated system. So there we are. So the pump will start pumping, there we are. A mae'r dŵr yn dod allan yn y gornol y fanna. Rwan mi wilwch, y rei yna chi sy'n fwy llygadog, fod na rhyw bach o tint yn y dŵr. There's a slight tint in the water, a coloration, and I'll come to that shortly. It's due to one of the matting which we've been experimenting with over the last few days, and it hasn't been that successful actually. And one of the issues is it does affect the colour and the smell of the water, and there's very small fibres coming from that matting. I'll touch on that in a few seconds. So there we are. There's the water coming into the each layer, and then it drains it through the crop, and then back into a sump or a drain in the middle of the layer. There we are. Felly hwn ydy'r bibell sy'n dreinio fy nôl i'r tanc yn y gwylod. Okay? Felly mae modd rheoli faint o ddŵr sy'n dod i fewn ac allan i bob haen drwy wasgu hwn a setio fo fyny. So there's a lot of options for controlling the water flow. So I'll switch this back off now. Felly dyma'r dŵr, and something we found fairly recently, and something I'm quite keen on, is trying to keep the growing systems very, very simple. So all the crops I've got these now on these layers are microgreens, and we were thinking quite early in the project that Mother Nature has been very clever and ensured that the seeds got all the nutrients it needs to get up and running in its early days. So we asked the team of scientists in Ibers in Aberystwyth to have a look at the literature to see whether we actually needed to put any solution, any feed in the water. And they came back saying that they believed from looking at the research there was no need for nutrients. So all these plants we grow in this particular unit, the microgreens, are just fed with water. Felly mae'n beth da achos mae o'n cadw'r pethau'n syml, cadw'r costa'n isel, ac hefyd mae o'n cadw fo'n iachach efo marn i. Cyn i ni sôn am cnyda, agwedd pwysig arall ydy'r goleuadau, ac ym mhob haen mae yna 5 stribed o oleadau LED. A mae rhain ola cry chydig bach o wres ac yn gweithio i ffwr o'r timer. So these lights are also on the timer above there, and you'll see that's quite an old-fashioned timer, and that's the timer actually much prefer that one to the one at the bottom, which is the digital one. I tend to go for 18 hours of light and 6 hours of darkness, but I've increased the darkness now, partly with cost, and also just so that I don't confuse the people passing by and thinking what's going on in that shed. So over the summer it's been an 18 hours light and 6 hours off. Felly dyna fo, mae bosib rheoli y goleuadau a'r pwmp, felly da chi'n cael teimlad yn barod fod o'n system sydd wedi automeiddio. Yn y gwylod efo hyn mae gynnau grop, dwi'n bos ar rhywun chi'n gallu adnabod hwnna, a croeso i Michael Allen, a Christian Cruz Chavez. So welcome Michael, welcome Christian. Can anybody recognise that crop? If you visited any sort of trendy juice bars, you might have come across this. This is wheatgrass, and we planted this. All the crops here are now 9 days old. So even end of September, without any artificial temperature, we are growing fairly successfully and fairly quickly. The temperatures haven't been particularly warm the last few days, so that suggests to me that this system in in the shed or a garage could grow for most of the year, maybe with some exceptions of the really cold parts. So wheatgrass, it's for the juice market, and we've had some interest from companies who might be interested in purchasing wheatgrass still growing off the matting. Now the matting we've got here is a combination of recycled carpet and wool. Now this is one of the new matting. We managed to get hold of hemp matting. We've got two thickness. This one is 3mm, and I'm afraid the early indications is a bit disappointing. Maybe it hasn't been made for this kind of system. Felly mae'r cywarch, fod yn syniad da ac yn ampelio fel defnydd adnewyddadwy, dydy o efallai ddim yn siwtio'r system o dŵr, a mae'n neud y dŵr bach y fudur, a mae'r ffibra yn mynd rhydd yn y dŵr, a mae'n risg i'r pwmp efallai cael clogio fyny. Rwan y bach o waith mynd ymlaen fo hyn, mi welwch chi yn y cefn y fyna 4 grŵp o bys i dyfu egin pys. 1, 2, 3, 4. A'r syniad y fyna di arbrofi efo'r mat yma, ac hefyd mae yna ddwrnod o fwlch rhwng heib o byn. So there's a day's gap between each one. We are sort of trying to experiment the taste difference between different age of the pea shoots, because we had some feedback from the chefs asking us whether we knew at which time or which age does the pea shoot have the optimum taste. Then we've got some more wheatgrass. Then this is very interesting. I don't know if anybody can recognise that. Oh, right, now the technical hitch then, boys. Mae'n dwllwch. Aroswch efo fi ymiliad. Y dylun efo dwi wedi checio hwnna, di gwir goliadau sydd wedi ffwr. A dyma ni, achos yn ôl ar un traed. Ia, reit, beth yw'r cnwd yma efo hyn? It's something quite unique. Mae wrach fod yn anodd rhag gweld efo nawr tyfiant o'r hadau falle rhaid i chi'n nabod. A cennin ydy hwn. A beth da ni wedi bod arbrofi ydy cynhyrchu cennin bach, cennin micro. So these are leeks. And we think there might be a little niche there for Welsh-grown micro leeks. It does grow very well in the system. And this is, I think, is the 3rd or 4th time to grow it in the flooded drain. Now these two are more conventional microgreens. Grown really well, and they're now ready. So 9 days, end of September, we've got a crop. And these are 2 radishes, radish piws yma ar un gwyrdd. Un o hwn ydy Rambo, ac un o'r math yma ydy daikon. So 2 different varieties, daikon and Rambo. Quite peppery, quite hot in flavour, and does look very attractive on the plate. Above here, we've got replicates, the same sort of crops grown, same idea, but different matting. This is a 10mm hemp mat, thicker than the one I just shown you, and doesn't really work that particularly well. The germination is poor, as you can see there, with the peas. So those peas were planted in the corner there the same time as this one above here. So there's a stark difference. Felly dydy o ddim wedi perfformio dda iawn, ond mae'n werth arbrofi achos oedd yna rhywbeth oedden ni eisiau trio gweld os modd cael mat sydd yn fwy cynaladwy na'r matia sydd yn cynnwys peth o garpedi synthetic. A rhywbeth dwi wedi ddysgu fo hwn ydy efallai fod werth socio yn yr hadau cyn I plannu. When I started with this a few months ago, I did used to soak the seed before putting them on the matting, just to get the germination process off happening sooner. Then I stopped soaking the seed, thinking there wasn't much of a gain to have if these seeds were scattered on a wet matting. But now, with a cooler temperature, I'm doubting again, because the germination, as you can see there, although it looks good, the germination rate is relatively poor, I think. So I think the idiot-proof way of ensuring good germination is to soak the seed, and you might gain a day of time as well, I think. So back to soaking will probably be one learning lesson from this current crop. So this is a pea shoot, and here we're testing a high sowing rate to see what the yield is, because we are doing a cost model at the moment to see which crops could generate a possible margin for growers. Ac mae'r egin pys yn tyfu'n dda iawn, o'n flasus, ac da ni bod wneud lot o waith trio gweld faint o alw sydd am egin pys yn lleol, ac o siarad, diolch yn fawr Matthew, mae'r Matia yn gwneud lot o waniaeth, wrach yn ôl at hwnna. Ac o siarad efo cwmnïau dosbarthwyr, mae yna ferchnad sylweddol am egin pys yng Ngwynedd a Môn. We've been surprised really at the growth in the market for pea shoots locally. And we reckon, rough estimate, that the market for pea shoot alone in Gwynedd and Anglesey is somewhere between £30,000, £50,000 per year. And for a small area, that is a sizable market. And if someone decided to grow pea shoots, I think, and decided to really target the North Wales market, then you are talking about a possible viable business, just specialising in one crop. David, yn ôl i'r bwynt Matthew, mae'r Matia yn ddiddorol achos mae dibynnu faint o ddŵr mewn dal, a sut mae'r dŵr wedyn yn trosglwyddo o'r mat i'r hada. Ac mae gen i un math o fat i ddangos eto. And it's surprising really when you start to get your hands dirty, although it's quite a clean, but what I mean actually doing the work, that it's difficult to get hold of information. So this unit and growing these crops does allow us to learn what are the challenges and trying to collate the information and share that then with other growers and potential growers. Right, mae fi dorri bach o reola iechyd o diogelwch, a mynd i fyny 2 gam efo hyn. Felly ar y top efo hyn, achos mae'r uned yma yn 2.1 metr uchder. So it's quite a tall unit, you need a good headroom. And on the top here, you'll see a different mat again. This is 100% recycled carpet, the cheapest of the 3, and it works very well. The downside is, of course, it's not compostable and it's not recyclable. However, it's recycled carpet, so it's good to make use of them. So you'll see some tidy squares here. Each square is 30 centimetre square, that's 0.09 metre square, and we can then calculate the yield per metre square. Yn fanna mae gennym ni'r cennin, y cennin micro, ac yn fanna mae gennym ni'r radish gwyrdd, sydd yn barod i gynaeafu, fyddai'n torri hynna heno ma'n efory, ac wedyn mae gennym ni'r radish porffor, y radish piws, ac yn torri hynna hefyd, ac o'n i fesur wedyn byd i'r cynhyrchiant ac unig bach o fodelu costa. Felly dyna ni'r 5 paen, lot o bethau mynd ymlaen, ac o ran amser, mae'n hawdd iawn, unwaith a chi wedi sefydlu'r cnydau yma, chydig iawn amser sydd i angen o ran goruchwylio, dipyn amser i olchi rhwng bob cnwd, achos dwi'n meddwl bod hynny'n arfer da, a hwn ydy'r cynnyrch da ni'n ddefnyddio i llnau, nid i gan fod ni'n cynhyrchu bwyd. So this is a product I've been using to clean the system thoroughly between different crop rotations and trying to minimize the risk of diseases and pests, etc. And then the harvesting takes quite a bit of time as well. Whilst I've got the camera switch on here, I'll just flag up a few interesting things we've been doing. Uwch fy mhen i fa hyn, mae gen I gateway LoRa 1. I've got a LoRa 1 gateway above my head here, which allows us to use sensors, Internet of Things sensors. Here's an example. This is an Ursalink light, humidity and temperature sensor. So this communicates with a gateway above my head, and then I can access this data remotely anywhere. So it's an example of an Internet of Things application. That's the box, and this particular sensor, which I've been lucky to be able to work with Rob Shepherd, who set this up for me, and the gateway. And Rob Shepherd is on LinkedIn and specialises in sensor networks. So we're sort of playing really to see what we could learn. I was a bit cynical when I first got this, because I'm thinking, well, maybe there isn't much of a use for it. But then I was looking at the graphs, and one day I noticed the light was on all the time, and that sort of indicated to me that I'd forgotten to switch the timer on, so that it actually did prove valuable. Mae'n eitha cynnas hyn yma di gwir, 15.7 Celsius, ac dwi'n siarad fo chi rwan just tu allan I Bangor, Gogledd Cymru. So I'm this evening talking with you from Bangor in North Wales. So there's literally hundreds of different applications we could look at with LoRaWAN. And LoRaWAN stands for Long Range Wireless Area Network, and it's one form of setting up of Internet of Things network. And Menter Môn is very active in this field, and it's an emerging field which I think there's lots of opportunities to add value to agriculture and horticulture. Felly, yn anffodus, dwi ddim yn meddwl fi rhaid ddangos y dashboard i chi o beth sy'n cael ei greu, ond beth dwi wedi gwneud yn hen ffasiwn ydy argraffu y dashboard o flaen llaw, a dyma chi y math o screenshot o dashboard mae'r sensor yn ei roed i chi. So I've been quite old-fashioned and printed the dashboard out for you to see tonight. So the sensor updates that every 15 minutes, and I can then have a look to see what's going on in the growing unit. So you can see the temperatures going fluctuating. Now, those of you who are quite eagle-eyed will see that graph at the bottom measuring light in lux. And you'll be thinking, well, the light has been switched off all the time. Now, what happened there, I'd been keeping the sensor in the drawer in the office for a few days, and then I brought it out again when I restarted this crop. So you can see the graph going up and down, starting going up and down again. Felly dyna chi jyst rhyw ragflas sydyn iawn o'r math o dechnoleg sy'n bosib i ddefnyddio. It's quite easy to get carried away with the technology, which is all interesting and does create opportunities. However, we are trying to focus on developing a route to market for these crops. Iawn, a jyst oedi ymwiliad i newid y camera. Os ydych chi rhyw gwestiynau neu sylwadau, gyrwch nhw. Do post any comments or questions, and I'll try my best to respond to them. Just yn gosod yr iPad ar dyna ni. So chi jyst rhoi eiliad ym myd, jyst ystyn yr system hyn. Iawn, Matthew wedi gofyn beth i cost rhedeg y system, a wna i drio rhannu bach o ffigur ar wan, Matthew. So I'll share some figures on the cost of running the system. Just can't get the iPad to stand. And then there's a question there on how do you plan to distribute your product to businesses. Okay, right, dwi'n meddwl bod hwnna'n aros na mae llithro gyda. Mae ddrwg yn ei. Dyma ni, iawn. Reit, y costa. Felly, da ni yn datblygu ar wan fatha rhyw model cost ar Excel, so we are inputting various costs. So I'll give you some examples, and at the moment there's a lot of chasing going around to get the prices from different suppliers. So I'll go through the pea shoot as an example, but because we are working on a pack of information to give to potential growers, so that they can then maybe weigh the pros and cons of different crops. So the pea shoots, the pea seeds, they cost 88 pence per 100 gram, felly £8.80 per kilo. A mae hwnna yn golygu prynu misil bag o 15 kilo. So it's very low volume. I think we could get that down significantly if we bought in bulk. Wedyn mae'r matia dwi wedi ddangos i chi. The wool and carpet mix mat, that comes out at £1.50 per metre square if you buy 10 rolls, which is, and each roll is 10 metres. The company that supplies and makes that is Grow Felt. A dyna di'r un o'r cwmni ac wedi bod reit wedi cael yn siomi ochr orad i gwir efo'r gwasanaeth a'r help llaw da ni wedi cael gan Grow Felt. The top mat, just pure 100% recycled Carpet mat was £1.13, so slightly cheaper per metre square. And then the hemp, we haven't had a price, but don't think we'll be pushing that. It's unfortunate because it would have been a nice story. And yesterday I had a sample from Germany of another hemp matting. We'll give this a try and see what happens. Wedyn, o ran y pecynnu and the packaging, I think I had a question about the distribution. So we have looked a bit about with the packaging because it's part of the supply chain. So we've been using these little packs to put the microgreens in, and we've distributed samples to some of the restaurants nearby. And then we're just written on them. And this costs 16 pence per pack. We also did, rather than cutting the crop, we cut the matting with the crop growing in the mat and put it inside one of these sandwich platters. It is plastic, unfortunately. It is difficult to find sustainable solutions with packaging. However, it's a PETE1 type of plastic, which is the most easiest and most straightforward to recycle. They are quite expensive, 62 pence for the lid and the bottom. However, much easier to harvest because you just cut the mat, put the crop in there, still growing when it reaches the customer, whether that's retail or a chef. So that's one idea. A wedyn, o ran cost eraill, mae yna gost trydan wrth gwrs, cost dŵr, ac llafur wrth gwrs sy'n bwysig. Dwi ddim yn meddwl fod uned y maint yma'n hyfyw, oherwydd fel eisiau mwy o sgêl. Ond dwi'n gobeithio drwy ddangos sy'n ma'n gweithio, pa mor syml di'r system, mae bobl yn gallu bod yn reit arloesol yn meddwl yn ffyrdd rhatach o sefydlu fo. So I'm not convinced one of these units will actually be viable on its own, because between the 5 layers, there's just under 5 metres square of growing space, unless you've got a very, very valuable crop. So you need to have a larger scale, larger area. But I do think that if people see this, and actually some people will get the experience of trying to operate it, it will maybe spur some ideas of how to do this maybe a bit more cost-efficient way. But I think probably one of the most expensive items is the labour in terms of cleaning and harvesting. Now with distribution, Nicola, delivery. So yes, this is going to be a key challenge, especially in the rural area. I think it depends on the crop. If it's a high value with a demand, then online sales is a possibility. There's a number of examples in the UK of growers doing well with specialist crops online. However, locally, if we're going down the sort of the local chain, then I think we need to work with restaurants and shops, and also distributors. We've got one distributor who's shown a lot of interest and willingness to work with us. One of the growers, James Houghton, who's had one of these units in Bryn Shenkin, has forged a good relationship with that distributor already over the summer. So there's the building blocks of a chain starting to happen, but that's going to be the key for this to happen. We can grow crops, it's getting it to the markets, that's the real challenge. Wedyn dwi'n meddwl Helen, you had a question about wastage. Yeah, I don't think there is any wastage. I think this is a trial unit, a bit of piloting, a bit of demonstration, and I've been able to get rid of everything. I had a glut of pea shoot, so there's a lot of pea shoot pesto in the freezer. However, in commercial terms, I think if this was set up, I think you could manage it fairly well to have a very low wastage rate, and I think maybe as a backup option you would need to have maybe ways of adding value or processing to keep the crop for a longer period. But I think again the key part of minimising waste is that supply chain communication, understand how much the restaurant is looking for or planning to buy, and having the communication across the line. With these crops, because it's a short rotation crop, you talk about 10-12 days in the summer. In the winter or autumn, spring, you probably talk about 14-15 days. you are able to turn things around quickly. I tend to grow these in batches, whereas probably what you would do commercially is have a conveyor belt. So you'd have some crops in day 1, 2, then others in day 3, 4, and day 6, 5. And that would give you some options in terms of minimizing wastage as well. So those are just some thoughts. Nicola, total produce, yeah, that is a distributor we would be very much interested to talk more. Nothing happening yet, so Nicola, if you can maybe facilitate that, maybe get in touch with Luke Tyler. Rwan ta, os yw rhywbeth arall eisiau siarad amdan, mae'r amser yn mynd, ac mae'n dda gweld yn y grŵp, so it's really nice to have, I think we're varying between 8 and 13, so there's some people coming in and out, and there's a hardcore of you listening this, whether you're on the sofa or whatever, in the kitchen, listening to this late on a Tuesday evening. Dwi'n meddwl mod i eisiau just diweddarach am y prosiect, achos da ni rwan yn cychwyn meddwl am 2021, a mi fyddwn ni mewn chydig o wythnosa yn rhoi gwahoddiad allan i bobl i geisio am un o'r unedau yma. So later on, there will be an open call going out, so that people in Gwynedd and Anglesey, that's where this particular project is focused on, can apply to have one of these units, because the whole purpose of these units is for people to get a taste of vertical farming and to see how it works, what the challenges are. So do keep in touch with us, maybe through this Facebook page, or send an email to Luke, and Luke is luke@mentermont.com, and he'll put you on the list. A sôn am rhestr, yn ogystal â gweithio efo tyfwyr, mae gynnon ni fforwm tyfwyr, lle mae rhywun sydd wedi diddordeb yn gallu muno, a fyddwn ni gadael chi wybod am unrhyw weithgaredd perthnasol. So you can join the Growers Forum. Again, get in touch through Facebook or Luke over email. Felly dwi'n meddwl, dyna fo, dwi'n meddwl, ni cyfro pethau eitha da fanna. Diolch Sheena, good to have you joining us. Dafydd, diolch yn fawr am y geiriau caredig. Sgan Clem sy'n hwn dod drosodd. Mae o rhywbeth eitha, dwi'n gwneud yn bach, ond mae'n anodd gwybod i gadw diddordeb pobl dydi. Good, I'll pause, I think, for a few, if there's any questions or comments. I think, yeah, we've covered it. So half an hour I was aiming for, we've just gone over 9:30. Llyfr Emont, diolch o galon i chi am gadw cwpini dros yr hanner awr dwytha. Thank you for keeping company over the last half an hour, and yeah, maybe we'll do one of these live stream sessions again. Thank you, diolch fawr i si Matthew am y geiriau yna. Diolch Nicola, great, thank you for the support. Wedyn, cadwch mewn cysylltiad. Dyn jyst eisiau gweithio o pawb, gweledigaeth ni fel criw wedi gweld cynnyrch lleol ar y blat a bobl mwynhau o, a cynnyrch o safon ac yn iachus. So that's what we're looking for, is to have these produce on people's plates, whether it's home or in restaurants. You know, that's the vision we've got, and we know there's a lot of people out there who are interested, and you know, let's work together to see what we can make happen. Oh, John, good. Thank you, John. Diolch. And John, yes, you've been pioneering with your own system, so maybe we can persuade you to do one of these live stream or a video shortly. So good to have you, John, joining us. Iawn, champion. Diolch o galon i chi. Hwyl fawr. Tara.